I saw a tweet the other day. It sparked a convo with one of my best friends and me think more deeply on why I think it's paramount for every game to let you skip through its content. Some of the most popular games like Final Fantasy, Baldur's Gate 3, Kingdom Hearts, Persona let you skip, so why shouldn't games like Star Rail and Genshin? Even in Baldur's Gate 3, of all games, you can skip dialogue. You know, the game based on Dungeons and Dragons that's heavily story driven and where your choices matter and actually shape your own story? That game, skipping is possible. It'll default to picking the first option for you by doing that, and truth be told, most people probably aren't gonna be doing that, because if you're into that game, you probably know what you signed up for. But the option is there for the players that do want to just get on with it. So why can't gacha games with linear plotlines not do that? Or why won't they? Let me give you an example that marked me and probably contributed a lot to my mindset. Have you ever played Kingdom Hearts? Not Final Mix, the OG version. Because for those of you that are convinced the skip button would be a bad addition, I feel like that experience would have changed you. There's this infamous unskippable cutscene that's been memed for years. It leads to a boss fight and it's a pivotal moment in the story, cool. Until you've seen it 10 plus times because you keep dying to this boss and you start going insane as you repeat the lines along with him.
It is I, Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness.
Thankfully, as previously mentioned, that was fixed in the Final Mix version of the game, and if they never allowed us to skip from that point onwards, we would have never had bangers like this video. Anyways, just so you know how I consume content in games, I personally actually read and enjoy story. I mean, I enjoy visual novels, so I don't actually dislike gachas deciding to opt for that kind of storytelling. I'll elaborate on that later. For now, I want to continue how other people approach content and dialogue. Some people finish reading a line and move to the next. I prefer listening to the character finish talking, which is why I absolutely adore the auto feature so that I don't have to manually press the button when they're done talking. I think voice acting elevates the experience, and I do find it a bit sad people don't take the time to enjoy it, but ultimately, it's up to them, and I can't impose my way of enjoying the game on others. And that is the whole point I am trying to make. Having the skip button is an opt-in feature that offers more options to the player base. Yes, if you let people skip the story, you could argue that people might be tempted to skip just because the option is there, taunting you in the corner, and while that is partly true, people like me will ignore the button completely. It could also be used to fast-track content when you don't really have that much time and still want the rewards. Sure, that doesn't exclude people that care about story, but I'm inclined to believe that set players will make time to enjoy the story at some point anyway, and isn't it a good thing to let people get their rewards ASAP? Some event stories run on for far too long, and I don't see how it isn't a net positive. But allowing people to skip means they won't get what's going on in the story, true. However, some people do not care what's happening in the first place. They just want to beat up some monsters and enjoy the combat, exploration, puzzles, or whatever else the game may offer outside the story. And also, I saw that comment over there to add on to the whole, like, people don't get what's going on. It's because some of y'all love mischaracterizing what you wanted to say, but whatever. If people are already mischaracterizing without a skip button, why is it making you think that adding it is going to, like, make that worse? I don't get it. If you don't give them the option, they'll instead be mashing spacebar to go to the next line as soon as the game allows them to, scrolling through Twitter or watching some anime on their second screen until they eventually get bored of it and quit. This actually hurts player retention. And for what? Because you want to impose your view on how your game should be enjoyed? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You cannot tell the people picking up your game how to enjoy your game. People like different things for different reasons, and you forcing them to sit through the story will not change that. I know that the devs pour time and effort into those stories, the voice actors into their lines, the animators into the cutscenes, but there are plenty of people already enjoying it, and as much as you want everyone playing your game to care, some people just won't regardless. As much as you might find it crazy some people play story-driven games and don't care about the story, these people exist. I'd like to use C.VA as my example because I think he perfectly illustrates my point. He used to skip through literally all story content he possibly could. Story-based games, he'd talk to you about gameplay instead, and always shied away from games that didn't have engaging enough gameplay for him.
So what's the opinion on skipping cutscenes?
On your first play?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
I skip like all cutscenes.
Now, fast forward a couple years, and after quite a few marathon streams playing through the entirety of Final Fantasy games with Iron Mouse, Connor's been enjoying story-driven games. That is purely because he decided to go out of his way to try and change his point of view on story in games. He's now played through the entirety of games like Fear and Hunger or Voice Ranger by himself and absolutely loved them. Which, by the way, if you haven't checked them out yet yourself, and you're not turned off by the graphics and vibes, I strongly urge you to go and do that, because they're both simply fantastic games. As mentioned previously, I enjoy visual novels, so stories sitting me through a lot of dialogue isn't inherently a problem as long as it's engaging. Genshin and HSR's problem lies in the fact that they both use 3D worlds only to essentially resort to VN-style storytelling, except instead of having PNGs sitting next to the text box, you now have 3D models standing around with the text box at the bottom of your screen, with little to no movement happening on screen. I won't go too deep into that topic because I want to keep this video constrained purely about the skip function, but it is part of the issue. HSR was pretty clearly inspired by Persona games, and they all employ a similar approach to storytelling. 3D world in which you walk around and a VN style of storytelling. The difference? You can actually fast forward or skip through things. A lot of people would probably agree that the Persona franchise is miles better in terms of story and storytelling, and goes for the other games I mentioned before, and much more outside of that, naturally. Yet the devs still allow their players to skip or fast forward through it. Actually, St. Tontas has a stance on the matter I hadn't really heard before.
Having that skip button available across all content lets players focus on doing what they came to the game to do, play it. And it also places an incredible amount of responsibility on the developer to actually craft a story worth listening to.
While I don't disagree, I want to add on to that statement, because I think the reverse is also true. You better make a good-ass story and not let it drag on for too long when you aren't letting your players opt out of it. We had to sit through the agonizing yap fest that Paniconi was, whether we liked it or not, precisely because there is no skip button. And don't even get me started on all the event or side quest stuff with like the drink mixing thing. Oh my. Those storylines paired up with the ever-growing power creep and lack of depth has caused many players, myself included, to drop the game, or at least greatly reduce their enjoyment, and Ryuku-sensei's video and its comments is a great way of showcasing the sentiments of a good chunk of the community. People have had enough. So why, oh why, does Hoyoverse then refuse to give a skip button to its players in these two games? Because what's even weirder is that in their newest title, Zenless Zone Zero, they do have a skip button. The reason is quite simple, actually. Star Rail and Genshin have been actively trying to get you to play their game for as long as humanly possible. Now, that isn't anything new. Wow, a game dev wants you to play their game. Thank you for letting us, AC. Okay, more seriously though. The thing with Hoyoverse, at least for HSR and Genshin, is that it is a lot more aggressive about it. And they hope to condition you to be fine with the slop they're delivering and keep you in, and clearly it's worked. Since they kept, and to this day keep getting away with it. And that isn't changing anytime soon. They have set the tone for other gachas and what they can get away with. Why do you think so many games got a 50-50 system, for example? I can't possibly quit now. I've already spent 3 years playing this. I've spent hundreds on this game. I'd lose all of it if I were to quit. How many people have you heard of or read saying that? The game is now part of their daily routine. Properly breaking out of that habit takes time, and that is by design. Again, not something exclusive to these two games, but fact is they are still actively getting in the way of your fun despite the years of complaints. Because they're so big, they don't really need to care and can take their sweet time delivering long overdue QOL updates. They're raking in literal billions, and people are still spending millions on their games every month. Despite that, you still have to go to dungeons on specific days in Genshin to get your Ascension materials. That is something I have not seen since Summoner's War, and that game... How long has it been, man? Your time and money has already been spent. You are never getting it back. If you aren't enjoying these games anymore, do yourself a favor and just drop them. There are plenty of amazing games out there and plenty of other things that will be far more fulfilling and respectful of your time. Hoyoverse's monopoly is thankfully coming to an end as competition is rising, and simultaneously so are player standards. So please, especially if you love these games, stop pushing back when advancements are on the table. Especially when it comes to changes made to respect your time more. Things are finally starting to change, and you should welcome it. Liking something doesn't mean you have to turn a blind eye to its faults and defend it at all costs. Acknowledge shortcomings and provide constructive criticism. This is the advantage of live service games. Developers can work with the player's feedback in mind and adjust certain things to better hit the mark. That's something we've had the pleasure to witness with both ZZZ's 1.4 and WooWa's 2.0. If you enjoyed this yet, feel free to like and subscribe.